Gimpin ain't easy, but it's necessary. I be getting weary, cause shit be getting scary. But sit back, relax, and don't you dare worry, cause I be hitting wrongs with a righteous fury. Yes, sir, see, I am the only one. My name is Josh Dunn, gonna have some fun telling the truths y'all can't handle. I might raise a scandal as I dismantle the fake, make them quake and make them shake. I make you bend, but never will I make you break. Just chill, yo, and don't be frightened. Open that closed mind, it's time to get enlightened.
Okay. Welcome, folks, to Gimpin Ain't Easy Cause It Ain't, episode number 27. You've waited nearly a year for this, and I'm so glad to be back. Here we are with the highly anticipated and probably largely forgotten latest addition to our series. Once again, we're brought to you, as always, by Charlie's Club, where most shots are $2.75 on Tuesdays, so even if you make some real bad choices, you won't go broke making them. I haven't been down to Charlie's for quite a stretch. I still love you guys, but I've got too much to do. Damn, my obligations keeping me sober. My thinking's too clear and sharp. I can't get anything done. I don't know how to breathe when I'm not seeing double. Do they still have that one person at a time in a bathroom rule? I can't pee when someone's waiting on me. Let's beat COVID so I don't have massive kidney failure. We're also brought to you this week, once again, as always, by Cafe Saint-Poil, where you can find me, Bookbird, every afternoon, attempting to eventually read every book in the shop. There might be 1,000 of them. Come watch me get cataracts. This week's feature book is a 1980s textbook on drugs, where you learn that nearly everything is a drug. Well, I'm here to report that the pages are absolutely delicious, and I'm back to seeing double again. Thank God I can breathe. We're also brought to you this week by Hubba Bubba Bubble Gum, where each piece is flavor packed for 3 chews. You could chew a whole pack in less than 3 minutes. What a great year it's been for me. The happiest relationship of my life. Hi, honey. And my film got finished. There, but for the grace of God, go I. Thanks to everyone who made this dream a reality for me. Our Hearts Aren't Disabled debuted in Finn, the Atlantic International Film Festival. It was a tremendous honor and privilege and crowning achievement in my career. Thanks to everyone who came out and who bought a stream, and thanks to Finn for having me. And a special thank you to the person who offered a donation to make up for some of the discrepancies. I will get back to you shortly. There was a wonderful package during the opening advertisements before the films, where the viewer hears from many different marginalized voices speaking their truths about the barriers they face in the film industry. It was very well done, but I didn't notice one visibly disabled voice in that package. When I speak about disability discrimination, I often talk about how a lot of times we're not even in the conversation. How can things improve if nobody is even thinking about us or talking about us? I'm here to tell you that disability, especially when it has a significant impact on one's life, is indeed a legitimate minority. I long for a future time when discussions and actions around accessibility move beyond the limits of access to physical spaces and include serious consideration for what it means to have access to a more dignified life. Scrolling down to my things to say here for today. Here's the last one. Money, 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 money. Some of you might recognize that as the old theme song of the $1 Million Man. Oh, if only I could be $1 Million Man someday. But I sure wouldn't want to be tangled up in the crooked Christianity scheme he's currently embroiled in. Send $1 million to me for eternal happiness. Now, don't do that. But seriously, the biggest reason we've been away for nearly a year is complete lack of funds. We've made about $40 each for doing this, thanks to a couple local businesses. That's more lucrative than my comedy career. No, not really, but sadly, pretty close. Also, thanks to you who've donated generously to have us on the podcast platforms. I recently decided to give up on the podcast platforms because I have a Facebook account on which I post everything and a YouTube account to which Mr. Baczynski uploads the show. The vast bulk of our viewership comes from Facebook and YouTube, so I've decided it makes no sense to pay money for a service that might provide 2 listeners where I can get 30 from my Facebook. But what I would like to do is pay money to my buddy. He does a ridiculous amount of work to record this, edit it, add the song and effects, and upload it. I'm not technologically inclined at all, so I really need his help. This is a show where my views and struggles are espoused, so it's really a generous favor on his part. I haven't once mentioned meat or MMA, so it's definitely all my creative juice. Anybody want to come and choke me out and feed me some bacon? If I don't tap in 2 seconds, it's the best sex I ever had. Please pay my buddy so we keep this going. And you know what? I wouldn't mind a few beans either, because while I love it, it is a lot of work to write these shows, find the right guests, do the proper amount of research on them, and write a sensible interview. I do love it, but it is challenging work. And please, don't get me wrong. I get by. A ton of people are way the fuck worse off than I am. But I would like to not live on welfare someday. $1 Million Man, or $1 Million Woman, or $1 Million Someone, or $1 Million Platypus, would you like to fund us? Money, 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 money. Okay, awesome. Ready to go. We are here tonight for Gimpin' Ain't Easy 'Cause It Ain't, episode number 27, with our very special guest, Kevin Penny. This is a true Gimpisode proper because Kevin is disabled as well as me, so it's nothing but Gimps coming in hot. How you doing tonight, Kevin?
I'm doing great, Josh. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for doing this, and sorry about all the kerfuffle about organizing everything. Yeah, I really appreciate it. So, I guess I start out this way with everybody, pretty much. What was life like for the young Kevin Penny, like childhood? What was your childhood like?
In my childhood, I lived in the Annapolis Valley, so I lived in a small town called Hants Border. Not even Hants Port. We didn't even make it into the town. We were on the border. But I just grew up as an outside kid. I had 2 older brothers and a younger sister, and we were just outside playing all the time, doing sports, doing chores, all those things that we love to do as children.
Yeah, no, that's
I was pretty active. I was into sports, pretty heavily into sports. Our whole family were into sports, specifically baseball at the time. But yeah, I was fairly decent academically, even though I didn't try. I could have probably done a lot better if I tried, looking back. But yeah, no, I had just pretty much an average country childhood, I would guess.
No, that's great. And yeah, I didn't try as hard as I should have either, but still got by, so I can totally relate. And I actually, because I watched some of your vlogs, and I got a baseball question set up for later, but I'm a big baseball fan as well. And I've watched your vlogs and I've loved them, and I was curious, like, so super active life, and then I guess in maybe 1991 your accident happens, and I've never been sure what, if you're cool talking about it, what actually happened there with the spinal cord injury.
I can share the story of when I became a GIMP.
Sure, I'd love it.
I love a good GIMP story. I mean,
word 'em up, gangsta.
Give it up, gangster. Yeah, no. So actually, my accident happened at the age of 15. So you were right, fact checking. Quite the fact checker there, Josh. You had to dig deep for that one. But my sister and I were actually on a bicycle built for 2. So I was on the front, she was on the back, and about half a kilometer from her home, going down a hill that I went down many times, and I swerved in an intersection to miss a car because I lost the brakes and went headfirst into a ditch, and someone had poured concrete into the ditch, and my new noggin hit that concrete, and I suffered a C4 spinal cord injury, which left me paralyzed from the chest down.
Yeah, that's quite a life change, right? Had you, like, prior to that, had you thought about, like, disabled people at all, or was that something that even, like, entered your kind of consciousness prior to the accident?
Great question, Josh. I had no knowledge of disability other than honestly in my elementary school or junior high, because I had my accident when I was in grade 10, seeing folks at the, because they would call it the resource center or what that, but other than that, I really had no experience with prolonged disability, obviously short term with acute disability with sicknesses, but never at all with disability. And nearly my family had neither.
Yeah, and like you say, like short term, like I'm sure playing sports, like one of your buddies or yourself will like hurt your knee or something like that. But
Exactly.
and yeah, just sorry, I'm sometimes all over the place. But just being such a baseball fan, what was your position that you most often played in baseball?
I was a pitcher and second base. I was a much better second baseman than pitcher. I realized that. So, yeah, I was a second baseman mostly.
More of
Roberta Alomar
that's what
was my hero.
I was just, yeah, and one of my big ones too. So you're much more of a Robbie Alomar than a Fernando Valenzuela or a Pat Henkin or yeah,
Oh yeah, much more. Yeah, much more.
yeah.
As scandalous as Robbie Alomar as well. So.
Really? Oh, geez, I hope not. He's in a lot of trouble right now.
Oh, did I say that out loud?
Yeah, I know. Geez, I'm hearing the voices in my head anyway, even if you didn't. But
Jeez, no, I was told not to say that. Don't say that.
yeah, yeah. Well, we're not Robbie, so we'll leave him to his own devices, I guess. But so just going back, so the accident happens, like what, like emotionally did you, because like I've always known you to be such like a positive guy, like what was through that like initial like, oh fuck, like my life is over, like initially, or did you feel that at all, or what were the emotions like surrounding your injury initially?
Well, I just celebrated my 30th quadriversary, as I call it, which is 30 years since my accident. So I can really reflect back over a lot of things. Because at the time, really, Josh, I didn't know what I was feeling. Really looking back, I mean, we talk about baseball, but thank God the Blue Jays were decent then because I got hurt in October. And I remember laying in bed after my accident and focusing on that and not really having time to really process my injury. I mean, as you can imagine, I had tons of company coming in and out, people from everywhere, so many friends from school wanting to see me. And then when I went to rehab, I mean, I had just a really good support mechanism, great peer support at the time, which I think is so important. And I did kind of make it through that part really well. And I don't know, Josh, why. I mean, it was struggling. I was an active guy to go from someone who's physically active who can't be active anymore. But I mean, it just seemed to work for me. Now, I don't want to rainbows and unicorns. I mean, there was some tough times in there. There were some tears and there was some scaredness like anyone else would have. But people around me just kind of brought me up and kept me kind of motivated to do whatever I possibly could do and whatever that was going to be for me. So I would say my environment and my community were what kind of pushed me through at that time when I really probably needed it looking back at it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And like obviously, I mean, not necessarily everybody here is going to know, but like for me, it was cerebral palsy since birth, right? So there was no, it just always was that way. And there have been times in my life that I've been very bitter and unhappy about that, but due to recent developments and having a nice relationship and like getting a little bit further along in things, I'm definitely more positive about it now than what I've ever been, so I think those support mechanisms in life that you spoke about, I think are really crucial, because like imagine if you had gone through that and there wasn't that friends and family there, or like the Blue Jays were still being managed by John Gibbons and you didn't have.
Oh my God, don't bring back John Gibbons. Don't do that. That was a nightmare.
Yeah, isn't it like worst manager in baseball is what it. Yeah, he probably voted for Trump too, I think.
Well, he was from Texas, so I think he's a strong. I think so, yeah. But no, Josh, you brought up a good point for there because my emotions really weren't my difficult part. My difficult part, I think, was once I got home, trying to get back into life and seeing all my other friends at 16 and 17 going on with their lives and kind of watching from the distance. And so that is challenging. But really, I must say I had opportunities. I had supports, like you said, both in the community. And then when I went to university, I had support signed up for me so I could at least have a level playing field so I could get my education and see where that took me. So through a lot of fighting and challenging, I think sometimes I feel like a pioneer, but I still think that that gave me the resiliency to push forward and know that if I really aim to do something and put my mind to it, that with the help that I could possibly achieve those goals. And really, I'm really lucky to where I am today. I keep saying that people don't always understand it, but I truly feel lucky.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I can really appreciate that because I went through a long stretch of most of my adult life. Like, I'm only a bit younger than you. I'm 38, and I think by the math, if I'm doing it close to correct, you're probably about 45 now, right? So, yeah, a lot of my times, I have been quite unhappy, but I have had like recent good turns of fortune that do, like, geez, like, so glad I stuck around just to see what would unfold, right? Because
it makes all the difference. I think you talk about it, Josh. I mean, if you have the ability to be able to live and not be a prisoner on income assistance, which I could have been, that could have been my life. And I know, Josh, you went through those challenges where you're living where you don't want to live and you don't have the space you need. And that's frustrating if you don't have that community support or love, which I know you have now, which is awesome. And I've been very lucky to have that. And it can really make your mental spirit change quite a bit and give you that drive for life. And watching you on Facebook having lots of fun, and I love your adventures you're going on.
Yeah, thanks, man. And just to clarify, in case I only ever really spoke openly about this in the last few years. I still am an income assistance guy, and now, mind you, I get a lot of support from friends and family and stuff like that. And I have done 15 years of stand up and 10 years of poetry, and this is like 27 of this podcast, and my film just debuted at Finn, so I've got my hands in all kind of artistic pies, like maybe too many even. And the biggest change for me was that at 22, I guess it was, and I've been told it's just part of CP. I developed urinary tract troubles, which I didn't. That was a whole big curve, and like I don't find the catheters work too well, so I kind of have to coordinate like everything I do around peeing. So that's really yeah.
Been there, done that, buddy. Got the catheter. I hear you. I hear you now.
And this is just curious because I'm always like, does it work? Do you have problems with it or?
With me?
Yeah.
Urinary tract?
Yeah.
Well, I suffered from like early on from my injury. I suffered crazy from urinary tract infection. Probably my biggest chronic medical issues that I dealt with, and I was on antibiotics all the time. There was a lot of research and just getting somebody else to catheterize me because I had to use catheters and stuff like that. But over time, I think things got better. Medical advances got better, and now I'm a lot healthier than I used to be. But yeah, I feel your pain, buddy. Those UTIs are not fun.
Yeah, no, and I know that's probably like TMI for everybody else, but you know what? It's like, fuck it, we're living it, right? So you know what I mean?
Well, you know what? It's not. It's not as easy to pee as you think it is, but if you figure it out and try to do your best, it makes a big difference in your life. Because I just remember being on antibiotics all the time, and as you know, Josh, all the side effects to medication can sometimes make your life worse than the disability you actually have.
Yeah, and then and I'm on a couple of pills, and it's mostly because I have a lot of trouble sleeping as well. I had a big breakdown. I finally got on some stuff, and the breakdown was mostly related to sleep deprivation, right? Like I've been awake for like 2 weeks or some shit, right? So
that's when you really start hearing the voices, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I really truly did. That's why I joke about it. Yeah.
Sleep depression is not good. I've been there, but I found a medication as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and that could be a tricky, because I need something, right? But then sometimes the medications cause other side effects, and then you got to take medication for them side effects. And and then you're like just a walking pill, right? So, or a wheeling pill, if the case.
I used to be more on prescription stuff, but now I kind of went more the medicinal way back about 10 years ago. And that's, for me personally, that's really had a huge effect in so many aspects of the life medically that I was having challenges with. So I found the wonder drug for me.
And when you say, like, do you mean like herbal medicines or pot or things like that, or like
marijuana?
Yeah. And it works for you.
It does work for me. I used to be on a lot of prescription medication for spasticity.
Yeah.
Josh, you're probably familiar. I don't know if you have much spasticity, but I know
Yeah.
I used to have a lot of spasticity and medication for sleeping even, and those medications can really get at you after a time. And I was on them for 2 decades, and kind of just wasn't working for me anymore. So I made a life change, and for me, that life change was a smart life change. I mean, I just didn't go one day and say, I'm going to start smoking pot. I mean, I went through my doctor and came up with a plan and looked at it, and one of the best things I've ever done in my life. And I'm not even saying that because I'm getting paid to say that by my marijuana company.
Yeah, it's
But
Tommy Chong, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, up in smoke. Here we go.
Some.
But no, for me, and that's not just that. I think the knowledge around medicine now, and I think the alternatives, and I wish I would have had more of those alternatives because for me, I think that's really been able to allow me to live an adventure like you see on my vlogs and be able to do and have the energy at 45 after being injured for 30 years just because I get good sleep. I'm eating well. I'm not zoned out in the brain. My brain is firing on all cylinders most days.
Yep, that's the way I feel now as well with sleep. So God bless the medicine that works for us, right? So
Everyone has a drug of choice, I say. Everyone has a drug of choice.
yeah, I'm just gonna dip into my heroin pile right next to now. I'm just joshing, man.
There's Josh, and yeah, exactly.
So you brought this up, and I want to say congratulations on this. You recently celebrated your 30-year quadiversary, right? So that's awesome. You know, that's a big
Yeah.
step. So I'm curious, and I've gotten the sense that it's gotten better. But how would you say accessibility has changed in the last 30 years?
I mean, I've lived within HRM, so I can kind of see it develop over those 30 years, being because I came to university here and kind of stuck around ever since. But probably in the last 10 years, I can really see drastic changes happen of improvements and attitudes, Josh. I mean, we have the Accessibility Act now, which is driving to provide physical spaces being more accessible. Transit is fully accessible now. And I just think the biggest barrier is people's attitudes are changing towards accessibility. And once you change people's attitudes, the will is there and things are happening. So I'm really excited because I can now do more and more, whether it's going to the beach and I'll have to bring my own stuff. I can go in the water in a beach wheelchair. I can get access to beaches if I want. I can go for hikes in parks, which I might not have been able to go to before because there was no accessible options. I can hop on a bus and go wherever I want independently. Those mean huge things. So that's, for me, that's where accessibility has improved so much for myself personally.
Yeah, that's the sense that I have watched a bunch of your videos, right? Just to get like an idea of that, and my sense was that I think that it has improved
Oh,
drastically
yeah.
when we're talking about like access to physical spaces, right? It has improved, and still like has a large way to go, because I've seen the struggles that you have like with getting on an airplane, that you want to actually be able to be in your chair properly in luxury like you deserve, right? And instead of dealing with all this, but here was an. I don't think this is the case, but I was wondering if there's any ways in which in the last 30 years accessibility has gotten any worse in any sense.
Hmm. You know what? Maybe not worse, but not really any better, if I can say that. I don't know if that is accessible housing. I
Right.
mean, accessible, affordable housing in this city is shitty. I mean, we have people living in places that no one would want to live in because that's all they can afford. And there should be more inclusive housing in downtown areas that is subsidized for people who don't have the means to pay the downtown prices, but still need all the services in that area because that's where we are. So, and that's been like that. And luckily, I have a great spot now. But over the years, I mean, trying to find accessible housing for my needs has been one of the biggest barriers. And it's still out there now. It's in the forefront now within the government. So let's see if they'll move forward and provide more accessible, affordable housing for folks in areas where their communities are and where their supports they need are. So I would say that would be maybe not. I don't think physical accessibility has gotten worse. I think obviously that's on the trend and knowledge. And then as you brought up, one day I'm going to get on an airplane. I'm going to stroll right in there in Blue Lightning, my chair, and strap in and enjoy the ride.
No, that's awesome. And I think I can feel it coming too. And I think that you brought up a great point with the housing, right? Because actually, a woman who was a participant in my film, she had been living, she's like, I don't know, I think she's like 29 or 30 or something like that. And she had been living in a senior's home up until very, very recently. And
I know exactly who you're talking
yeah,
about. Good friends with her, and that's the people I'm supporting for, because there are many people out there that can't speak out, but she has, and I'm glad.
Yeah,
Glad
she,
for
yeah, she's a wonderful. It's a funny thing, like when you're disabled, you're kind of thrust into like advocacy. I see myself as like more of like just an artist, and like if advocacy like comes up, I try to do what I can, and I have some sort of different slants on it than maybe a lot of people do. So, but the I think the housing that you brought is like so, and it's just amazing, right? Because now she's able to live more independently, and like that's an awful shame for somebody who can is possible capable of making all their own decisions and everything like that, to have to be in institutionalized care for no other means than that they can't meet their own physical requirements. Like something that's really that I think that
Can,
needs to be a big shift, right?
can you imagine the fuck up that would have on your mental health? I mean,
Oh
I guess
man.
that's one thing I've had all my life, pre-disability and post-disability, as I've been able to make the decisions for myself. I mean, obviously, when I was 15, I was still told what I had to do sometimes, but I'm able to make those decisions all my life on my own. And I mean, you can't imagine what it would be like when that's taken away. So shout out to her for pushing it forward for everyone else, and she'll be another pioneer where people will follow in her footsteps.
Yeah, keep going, Vicky. That's
Exactly.
that's the thing, like because things have been bad for me now, but like I've always like since I moved out at just before 21, I've always had my own apartment now. I do need like a wheelchair accessible entrance for when I use my scooter and stuff like that, but like other than that, like my needs are much lower than some, and I've just been so lucky. But I'm even concerned, now because finances are kind of low. So with this housing crisis, if something happens, and that's something that even I think goes beyond accessibility in some cases. You got people that have no disability or any problem, just can't afford nowhere to live, and they're living in tents, and the cops are coming in and smashing their tents when they go to work some of the time. Like
Yeah, I know it's a real crisis, and it's got to be cleaned up quick. We see all this wonderful. People say the development's nice, all these nice apartments are up, but they're not accessible and available for everyone. It's just going to segregate everybody again, based on region, and so let's keep the momentum going.
yep, yeah, absolutely. And so just switch gears a little bit because we have to promote this because this is you're my guest, and I've loved your videos that you've done. So and I wanted to ask a little bit about Dee. I seen in the videos like you two started out as friends, right? And then after I believe, and after a few months, you started dating. I kind of vibed on that. Were you guys co-workers? Is that how you started meeting in the first place?
So your fact checks aren't that great, Josh. It
No,
wasn't two
I
months.
missed one. Did I?
It's not 2 months. It was 2 years, but close. It what I mean, what's 22 months, right? Really, in a
Yeah, yeah.
relationship, what's
I'm
22
only
months?
off a couple pregnancies.
Oh, ouch! Oh my.
Er,
Um, yeah, we actually met through the sport of sailing. So I'm quite an avid sailor, and I was involved with the disabled sailing program here in Halifax on the board of directors. And he came on as one of our sailing instructors for the summer, a few summers actually, and we met in 2013, and yeah, almost a year and a half, 2 years later, we started dating. So we were very good friends. First, we kind of got to know each other on the boat. She was very influential in teaching me how to race better, and a really good racer herself in her days, and continues to enjoy that. So yeah, that's how we met, and then kind of took it to the next level, not expecting to, but things happen, and in 2014, late 2014, we started going full force.
yeah, like, hey, if you're getting along, great. Why not try a kiss? And most of the time, it hasn't worked out for me, but occasionally it has. So,
We all strike out once. Even
Yeah.
Robbie Alomar strikes out.
Yeah, a million times for me. But so that's so I wasn't I was a little bit off. So you were more like co-hobbyist as opposed to like
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
co-workers. But
like yeah.
yeah, so we came together through the sailing, and then I believe it's been a ballpark a year since Accessible Adventurers, your YouTube channel, and you're also on Facebook and Instagram. What was like? What was the impetus to get that start to happen? Like, what did you guys think about? Like, how did that get started?
Well, before Dee and I dated, I was huge into traveling. Um, I've traveled all over the place, been very lucky through community work and a lot of personal travel to explore the world. So it's in my blood, and I look forward to that every year. So when Dee and I started dating, I mean, early on, she realized that she had the travel bug as well. So we used to travel together and we'd take pictures, and people would ask us questions. Sometimes just our friends would be like, or whoever, how do you guys travel? Like, what do you do when you're on an airplane? So at first, we just kind of started an Instagram presence where we would take pictures and show posts and maybe small stories, showing people how to do things. And we didn't really think it was going to go anywhere. And then the followers started to go up a bit, and people became more engaged. And then we thought, well, maybe we could do videos, not knowing anything about it. We are not editors. Dee is self-taught to be editing software and quite good at it, as you can see. And I've never done anything like this before. And we just decided to start making little videos about our travel, and mainly around travel and our adventures, mainly recreational stuff. But then over time, it just seems to morph into more. There's some serious stuff about how I live my life, not just how we do it when we travel. Stuff about disability issues, disability rights. Sometimes I'll chime in when something's really important to me and make that an important issue. Air travel being one now. I think that's what a lot of people are putting a lot of time and effort. So, and we just really have a lot of fun. And through COVID, Josh, it came on nice because during COVID, we it forced us to get out and be out as much as we can and explore things that we might not always explore because we might forget about it doing the other things. So it really allowed us to travel locally and regionally to be able to see, wow, our province is getting more and more accessible. And I really saw that firsthand with Dee. And yeah, we have a lot of fun, and we've been coming more and more known in the community, and people are reaching out to us for our advice, not professional advice necessarily, but personal advice on accessibility. And that's a real good mind shift. And I think it's the way that accessibility is going to be pushed forward into the future.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome, and I think like you brought up a good point. During COVID, that you're able to see those more natural spaces, right? Because you're not going to catch that from the trees and the birds unless those birds happen to be bats, and unless you happen to start eating them, right? So,
Oh my God! Don't go there now. Don't say that to Dee. She'll think that I'm going to get a quote from the birds now, Josh.
well,
The bird flu.
he hasn't eaten bat in 3 weeks, D. So I think he's
Oh,
like
perfect. Yeah, exactly.
so like so that's I was just what we so I think you answered this, but so would you say like your accessible adventurers, which people could find on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, is is that fair to say that it's a travel vlog with an accessibility twist, or an accessibility vlog with a travel twist? Like the two are quite intertwined, right? Those themes.
Yeah, they cross over quite a bit, Josh, which I like about it. So it basically shows D and I as an interabled couple living life and showing that it is different, but it's not that much different. We might just use different tools to do the things that we want to do. We might access it a different way, but I think our big thing is to showcase people that it's not that different. And I think when you put that lens and that honesty in, and we're really just really open with everything, we don't medicalize it or anything like that. We try to focus that you're seeing the lens through what we're going through when we do something fun or we challenge something. And I think people really gravitate to that because it feels like they're coming along the adventure. We get that a lot. If we're going to a beach and we showcase that, or we're going on a vacation, people feel like they're literally coming along with us and saying, and the biggest thing we get is the feedback, which I had no idea, was other people who have the urge and want to travel, but might have that anxiety or fear, or, hear horror stories, but I kind of showcase, yeah, do happen, but you can travel. And as a person with a severe disability who has a lot of gear and shit I got to take with me when I travel, it can happen. And luckily I have Dee. I mean, Dee makes as the perfect travel companion because she can advocate for me when I can't yet, like for the transitions on the airplanes. And not everyone has that luxury. And when we travel together, we have a great teamwork and a chemistry that we've figured out. And we have a blast. And a lot of times disability by the time we get there is not an issue, or accessibility, sorry, is not an issue.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that, and I think it's just the sense of like I think what your guys' YouTube shows so is like you guys are just a couple, and disability happens to be a part of that, and there needs to it needs to be like you need to approach your travel in a different way, but at the end of the day, you're just doing the same thing as everybody else, any other healthy couple would go and do. And I just want to share a quick personal story. Like you said, these so central and essential to your like with me, like Sam and I just went to her cottage in it's just outside of Tatamagouche, a place called Malagash, and she's doing the driving. I got to stop about 6 times on the side of the road to pee or whatever, but like so her helping me doing that is just like brought so much to what I can experience so much more now, so it's like that help is like just so invaluable and can't ever be underestimated, I don't think.
No, I think it's great when two people can come together and have that same interest and build off each other's strengths. I mean, and it's not all physical either, Josh. I've learned that. I might not be able to provide a lot of physical support directly, but emotional and mental and just being there for people and being a partner is so important. So I'm glad that you found that because I can really see the transformation in your smile, buddy. I saw you on the waterfront that day. I assume that was your girlfriend with you. I didn't know.
Yeah, that's Sam. Yeah.
Yeah, and we ran in and she knew who we were, and it was kind of cool. So it's
Yeah.
nice Josh, it's nice to see you out.
Yeah, man, it's nice to see you too. Yeah, and it's such a funny. Like, I think it's probably fair to say you're an extrovert, and I do these things and stuff that I do. These different artistic things, and I can talk when I'm comfortable and things like that. But I'm actually quite introverted, right? So I remember I was looking, and I hadn't seen you a few years, right? So like I wasn't sure if that was you, and then if it was you, it was like, oh well, you're out with your girlfriend, so maybe I don't want to bother you, like I have those like insecurity things of like like fuck, somebody's busy, right? So so I'm a bit more awkward in that, so I appreciate the fact that you were so like open and welcoming and stuff, because that stuff doesn't always come so naturally to me. So
I'd be on the other spectrum. I'd be the extrovert, Josh, that would see you and your girlfriend there in the middle of a conversation, eating, and coming over and interrupt you and saying hello. But you know what? We still got to say hello, and that was great that day because that was a beautiful evening. And
yeah,
great day to be on the waterfront.
it was really tremendous, wasn't it? And I just want, because I'm just looking at my questions here. So I was curious with the adventures that you've been on, with the actual places that you've been to. What would you say are the best like place or places, or the worst place or places that you've been to?
I think over my experience traveling would be the most accessible places. It's not really necessarily a certain part of the country, but the United States is quite good because of the American with Disabilities Act. So if you're looking for physical accessibility, like transit or accessible, like plenty of accessible hotels and stuff like that, services. I mean, places I've been to, obviously Florida. I've been to Hawaii where the services were good, California. So any major decent city have those in place. So that's been really good. Recently, we ventured to Europe just before the COVID. So we went to Dee's hometown outside England and ventured to Paris. So seeing that England was very accessible, mainly transportation, which is usually a huge barrier, trying to get around if you don't have a car, you know what I mean? And taking buses or subways, and they were all easily accessible. So cruise ships. I've been on many cruises and a few with Dee, and they're like a walking or floating accessible dream because it just caters to those individuals that have mobility challenges and makes it easy. So those would be probably the better ones. Probably the challenging ones would be when you really want to go somewhere remotely. I went to Costa Rica for a month back in 2014, and that was an eye changer. And you notice it right away when you see nobody else that looks like you or moves around like you. So those countries, I mean, but you have to give and take sometimes. You have to weigh the adventure with the challenge of disability and weigh that out. And sometimes you have to balance that sometimes in order to be able to experience what you really want to set out and experience. And those are the memories of the adventure.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, Costa Rica, because I remember I had a really good friend, and unfortunately he passed away from lung cancer about 9 years ago. He was 58 at the time, and he was one of my best friends ever. And he like this. He lived on Creighton Street, and it was like whole neighborhood kind of. And this girl from Japan had moved onto the street, right? And she was over hanging out. And she was surprised to see me because and I don't believe she was from Tokyo. She was from like rural Japan somewhere, right? And disabled folks like us in rural Japan at least in 2006, like they didn't go out of the house. So it wasn't seen, right? So she was really surprised. So I wonder if there was some of that kind of like mentality in Costa Rica where, it hasn't been accepted into the culture as much. So maybe like those folks aren't out and around. I'm just wondering.
And I think it's part of that and learning more about developing countries' culture is some of them just don't have wheelchairs. So
Yeah.
if you are disabled, you can't afford a wheelchair or have access to that. So what are your options? You can't go out if you can't roll around. I mean, and I've heard even more stories where people are pushed around in strollers, adults pushed around in strollers because they can't get access
Oh
to
yeah, and they're
support
like too
them.
big for the strollers, and
Yeah, exactly.
and then
Arms and
they
legs,
get
all
confused with
that.
the fetish community because there's too many adult babies rolling around, right?
Oh my God! Now where is this going? No, not adult baby fetishes.
you know,
Yeah. So, but I mean, there's things like that. But I mean, the options out there are a lot more, and I think accessibility around the world is getting better and better. And through our research, and Dee really does a lot of the research now because that's her thing. She likes to research things that I'm more like. I like to research a bit, but I like to experience it at the same time without too much research. But there are places, and we follow other disabled travelers and adventurers, and even in some really remote places, you can imagine there are areas where you can go and get the support you need. So that's pretty cool.
yeah, that's and like, were you guys able to land any like sponsorship or any kind of patronage for accessible adventurers, or is it just something you guys just do and like don't get any funding for?
Well, it's just a personal thing that we
Yeah.
started. So the way YouTube works is after you get so many followers and reach certain milestones, then you can get monetized off ads. I mean, we don't have a tremendous amount of followers, but I mean, we do receive a very modest amount, and I will say modest. We're not Alicia McCarville and getting rich in one day, if you know what I'm saying by that.
Yeah.
But what's happening now, Josh, which I mentioned earlier, is organizations, businesses are reaching out to us and asking for our ideas, and they're not just asking us to do that out of the kindness of our heart. They're actually paying us for our knowledge and our expertise, which I think is amazing. I don't know about you, but I've done so many talks. Glad that I have over the years for free of charge, just try to share the gospel and describe disability from my lens. But now I think people are seeing that experience and the value of that experience and the value of that knowledge. So yeah, it's starting to come back because it's a lot of work. I mean, when we do a full video, I mean, we've totaled about 10 hours of work from planning to editing to shooting to post production, like all that stuff. So it takes a lot of time, and we both work full-time jobs. So it's interesting how it's moved forward, and hopefully it was never an idea, but the goal I think someday, Josh, would be if anyone's listening, yeah, if there's travel agents or organizations that want to send us to check out the accessibility of something and promote it, that we're all over that. That's what we're all about. We
You
want to show
know,
that others can do it as well.
yeah, every local government in the world pay these guys to come out and see them and rate your town or country or state or village.
Yeah, and just from personal perspective, like I said, we're not engineers or architects. I don't want to be that. I just want to make things practical and usable and functionable. That's what we need, and that's what most people want.
Absolutely. And here's the one that I'm going to throw you that might be a bit of a curve, or maybe you might just have a different opinion on it than me. But I wrote this big long question, but it's too ridiculous. I'm just going to say it as natural as I can. So I find when it comes to folks like me and you, folks with mobility challenges, right? All the talk, or at least most all the talk that I ever hear, is when it comes to accessibility, is about accessibility to those physical spaces, which we do need, right? But absolutely, we need to get in those spaces. And I'm, not as challenged as some, right? Because like I can use my crutches and I can crawl over places and stuff like that. But where I've found disability and accessibility to be most limiting to me is in friendships, in professional opportunities, and in romantic relationships. And I've even put it into a little rhyme, and I said, like, where disability can hurt the most is in terms of getting paid, getting laid, and getting friends made. And I was curious if you think maybe that's just a personal thing, or that doesn't involve disability at all, or what's Kevin Penny's thoughts on that?
I think I'm on the same page as you, buddy. You just say it's so much more. What was that? Getting paid, getting laid, getting friends made.
You got it.
Oh my God, I'm gonna get that put on a T-shirt. Can I coin that? I like that. But it's true because everything you do in life is based on opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't get paid and you can't do more to pay your bills, you know what I mean?
Yep.
You're not going to have the same opportunities as everybody else, and you're going to get sheltered, and that's frustrating. Getting laid, yeah, that's not easy. I mean, intimacy, we hear more and more about it with disability. And I think we're way behind here how important and how challenging intimacy is with persons with all disabilities, but specifically, I think physical disabilities, severe physical disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And your friends thing, I mean, I've been through it. I remember after my accident, your close friends when you're young kind of gravitate away, probably more when you have a disability. And when they gravitate away, you kind of have to build those new friendships and moving around and transitioning and trying to trust those friends. But now I have a great friend group. So I agree, man. Those are the three challenging things. And thank God I have those three things right now. I mean, I won't tell you how often, but that was for the second one, Josh, just if you didn't figure that one
out. I figured that out because I didn't think you were getting stop ups in your work pay.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, for me, it just seems that those are big challenges for people, Josh, and we've all gone through those, and it's been tough.
Yeah, I really appreciate talk on that, and I like to see more disability accessibility talk because I feel like that one man army, that I'm just like, no, these are the things. Like, yeah, sure, no, we need to go places too, but like if you're just a nobody in these places and impoverished, like if you've got in the building, great, but if you're not part of the conversation, then I'm not like. It needs, like, I think the physical spaces scratches the surface, and which you need to get into, but then we need to probe deeper, for lack of a better.
I think so. I work in the education field, and I know I work with your aunt, and that's give Linda a plug. I mean, you got to give Aunt Linda a plug because she's a warrior as well. But for her, I mean, she's my mentor. I've learned so much about that. But in the education field, I mean, there have been so many barriers to education, and so I agree. I used to think you think accessible, you think ramps and elevators and curb cuts, but it's so much more than that. If you can get into the building, that's great. But if you can't access the services and the services in that building that you require are not accessible, the ramp is useless.
Yep, yes. And that is exactly like and that's why I feel like, I'm glad you feel that way, because I feel like so isolated sometimes in my thinking and the way I speak about it, right? So I really, and yeah, thank God for Aunt Linda. Yeah, we wouldn't know each other if it wasn't for my Aunt Linda, I don't think, right?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah,
she always has stories. Yeah, always stories for you, Josh.
Yeah.
Parking your scooter under her balcony so it doesn't get soaked in the rain when you're going to visit her.
Yep.
Man, wouldn't an elevator in that building make your life without Linda so much easier?
Yeah. No, I know. Or, yeah, I just drive my scooter up the stairs or something if I get
Oh my
drunk enough,
God,
right?
you get a run on.
Yeah, yeah. That's good. Yeah, just we're getting close here. I still got a couple more, but
Yeah.
so it didn't come up yet. But you mentioned, and I hadn't written this out actually, but with other accessibility vloggers and interable couples, and I've heard I heard you talk about, but. Squirmy and Grubs, like they seem like a special case to me in the sense of like I know they've got sponsors and and I know like they get a lot of flack because people like don't believe them because like how could this like beautiful swimmer model be attracted to like a tiny dude in a chair, right? And I think that's very unfortunate they get that flack, but I also like because I think they are legitimate because unless he's paying her like $50 million, why would you devote that much of your life, right? So I think they're legit. Where I struggle with them is like they go like they I think they've bought 2 new houses and like and this was like pre-COVID, right? But they went to like Disney World, they went to like Poland and the same, and like all the power to them, like awesome, right? Like so I'm not but I don't know that like how it seems to me they kind of live in luxury, at least to what I'm used to, and I'm not too sure that they represent the average disability experience.
Yeah, we follow Squirmy and Grubs, not so much anymore. Actually, that was the YouTubers that we started watching when we decided to go from the Instagram world to a vlog because we thought, hey, if they can do this, but we thought we could do it more authentically. And like you said, Josh, I think at that time they weren't as big, but they've gotten big very quickly. And I've read Shane Burkaw's books, and their books are interesting. I mean, his take on disability is a lot different than my take on disability, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
We all have different views and different experiences. But I don't want to toot my own horn. There's me toot my own horn. But I think we are way more authentic and real and average.
Right.
And I'm very lucky. I mean, I'm probably above average with the privileges that I have in my life and what I've been able to obtain through hard work and opportunities. But I think for me, I think I like our authentic approach, our real approach, and we don't forget about disability. We're disability advocates first and have fun. So we really want to stay in that zone. Because that's a fear. I mean, you think about it, you think, oh, if you get rich and go big and then you're pulled all many different ways. But I don't think we want that. We've talked about this. We want to keep authentic as we can and just show people possibilities. And that might sound like pie in the sky, but I'm living that dream. I literally am living that dream that I thought I might never have. And it's a pretty, they say you have a runner's high. Well, I have a roller's high right now because I am like wheeling high. No pun intended.
Yeah, and literally probably thanks to your
How do you think I'm getting through this conversation?
Yeah, I know. Jeez, I couldn't do it sober either. I'm drinking Zambuca.
Oh my! Cheers. Mazel tov.
Mazel tov, indeed. No, that's great. And just because I mentioned I do want to talk about the Blue Jays for a minute here. And did you watch much this season?
I'm not a big regular season guy, but this year I did watch because it reminds me of when I was watching the late 80s. There was the young guys, the Jesse Barfields, the George Bells, the Tony Fernandezes. I don't know if you remember all these guys, Josh.
Oh, yeah, Tony. I started in 92, 93, so yeah, I was a little past that, but yeah.
Bandwagon.
Yeah, as a 9-year-old, but...
Oh, as a 9-year-old. Oh, yeah, and you know how it worked, Josh, in 1991 after I came home. I was told everyone I was a Blue Jays fan, so I had more Blue Jays paraphernalia than probably the Blue Jays store in Toronto, I swear to God.
Yeah.
But then I got to go see the Blue Jays in 1992, my first trip traveling as a person with a disability. So it's funny you bring this up. I didn't know you were a Jays fan, but this year I did probably watch more than I did, especially at the end when they were up and down. And I'm really liking the vibe of the team. They're having fun.
Yeah.
I love their manager. Some people might not like him, but I think he's amazing. He's a people first manager. So Yeah, the Blue Jays are looking good for us in the future. Maybe we'll have to hitch a free ride up to Toronto and showcase the accessibility of the Rogers Center.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I went in 2014 on a short trip to Toronto, and I was looking for a bathroom where nobody else would be, right? So I could have, and
Yeah.
I found a single room, and I was like checking to make sure if it would lock. And guess who came along to help me and to like check the bathroom to lock for me was Jamie Campbell.
Oh, Jamie Campbell, the Sportsnet guy.
Yeah, and
Did he hold it for you? Did he hold it for you,
he
Josh?
did, and he was like, and I was
Oh
like,
my God.
I was like, I don't know if it locks, man. And he was like, no, I've been in here, it does. Here, test it, I'll show you. And he's like, yeah. And I needed to pee so bad, I didn't have a chance to sell that it was Jamie Campbell, and thanks, Jamie, but it was, and he did. And if by some miracle he's out there listening, thanks, Jamie Campbell, for helping me pee back in 2014.
Yeah, and you know why he's using that bathroom? He's going to take his dumps in there in the accessible washroom because that's what everyone does, you know. So
Is
maybe
that where that smell was? Is that what that's...
oh my Jesus! Every time my pet peeve about oh yeah, it's not a dump station; it's the accessible washroom, my friend.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even need that much room to poop.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I watched a lot this season, and
Yeah.
I wanted to say I like Charlie way better than John Gibbons. Like, it's not even a
Oh
contest
God.
for me. But in my own Jays fandom, I think Charlie is wonderful for player development and stuff like that. But I'm not sure if he has that killer instinct to win them close games. Because you remember, now we did start winning a lot of close games later on, but we would blow them out, right? But then when it get
Oh, my.
close, Charlie be a little finicky with the pitcher. And I'm really old school in that you stick with your starter as much as you can from your starter, and you use the bullpen when it's close. So
Oh my
like.
God, you must be hating the playoffs right now, then. Where
Well, the Jays ain't in, so I ain't watching, right? So,
okay,
yeah,
we don't have starters now. We have openers.
I hate
They're the
that
guy that
shit.
pitches like one or two innings and then leaves, no matter how well he. I'm with you, old school, but yeah, we'll see what happens, man. It's just fun that they're in the. It's more fun when they're in the mix. That's
Yeah,
all I have to
they
say.
missed it by one game, so they had me hanging on, and then it was great
Oh,
because I got to focus on other things that they did since they didn't make it, right? So,
well, Jamie Campbell got to hold your PP, so
yeah,
you put that. That's on your bucket list, buddy. You can check that off.
best sex I ever had.
Oh my Jesus! I hope he thinks the same.
Yeah, he was smiling. But okay, cool. So we've covered a lot here, and so just before my final question, I wanted to ask if there was anything that you would like to add that people might not know, but either you like to know, or something I didn't cover in the interview.
I don't think, Josh. I think you've done your homework, man. This has been so much fun. I love these types of things because it's so open and frank and just having a chat. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you having me on. But I think we covered a little bit of everything. And if more things start to happen, I'd love to come back on as a double appearance sometimes, man, because I admire you for your stand-up comedy because I kind of would love to dabble in that a bit. But I think I'm going to leave it to the professionals.
Oh no, fuck. Get if you're into it, man, get started. I can we could talk some other time. I can definitely. I'm not. I don't have a lot of like power in town, and that. But in terms of like, just pointers for like how to structure things on stage and comedy formats.
Oh, yeah.
I'm happy to help there because like you're a funny guy, man. So, but it's just a matter of like learning the process. Just like I taught myself, right? Like I started off sucking, like not knowing what I was doing and stuff like that, and progressively got better and managed to get a little bit of work from Yuck Yucks, and like I'm not doing stand up that much no more, but I did a show in August, like all new material, and like blew 'em out of the water. So it's like, okay, cool, I can still do this, and my new stuff worked, and right? So
Oh, you still got it, Josh. And that process sounds like my sex life, the three-step process that you talked about.
yeah, I need to figure out
Weren't
that.
good at that at the first time, just faked it, then you figured it out, and then you flew it out of the park. So there you go.
Yeah, yeah, no, the female anatomy remains more complicated to me than astrophysics or whatever, and I don't know astrophysics either. So there you go.
Practice, practice, practice. That's all I say, Josh. Is practice, practice, practice.
Yeah. So, okay, we're down to the final question. I did give you a heads up about this one because a lot of people hesitate, and because it's such a broad question to ask people. But what do you think the meaning of life is?
For me personally, I think you want to know that, right? What is my
Yeah,
meaning
yeah.
of life?
Your take on the meaning of life.
You
Yes.
know what? Life is a roller coaster ride, my friend, and I've seen that because over 45 years of being on this earth and 30 of that being on wheels, I mean, it's been up and down. So for me, the meaning in life is just, and this sounds cliche, but you have to live life to your fullest. I mean, you really, really do. And if you can do that, and that doesn't mean you have to be super rich or super poor or either anywhere in between, but if you can live your life to the fullest and give to anyone or give back, I think that's important. And I think for me, in my life, why I think I am so positive and such a good advocate and want to help the community is because I know what that value can bring to me and what my life or the meaning of my life would be so different if a few things went different early on. So for my meaning of life, I mean, just live it to the fullest and and really that's and continue to change attitudes with your just your regular sorry continue to change perspectives just with your positive attitude and keep moving, keep rolling.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine, this is kind of nostalgic, but a late friend of mine, the nurse who actually I met when I was at my accident during a merge, he passed with cancer a few years back, but one of the first things he said to me about 24 hours after my injury was never say never. And I use that philosophy still continually because never say never, things can happen.
No, I think that's really cool, and yeah, sometimes like the things that you never dreamed of actually like do become real, right? So
Yeah,
so
I'm living my best life.
yeah, yeah, and I especially recently for me, I feel the same way too, and I like the slant that you put on about like live to the fullest and like and give back and help out when you can, right? Because that's it, it's all
Exactly.
about spreading it around and like creating a better future and like you said, changing things, right? Because I think ultimately like we want to leave the world a little bit better off than it was before we were here if we can.
Well, Josh, we're going to take over the world soon. Don't you know that? Like the disabled folks are going to have world domination very soon. So we're working up to that. So we got to be ready when the time comes.
One very slow step at a time.
Got it. Yeah.
Which one of us is Pinky and which one is the brain?
Well, we have to be interchangeable because sometimes my brain might not be uh, firing on all cylinders.
No, that's yeah. We can be both experimental lab mice, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
fuck.
about walkie and wheelie? Oh, there we are.
Yeah, shit. Well,
Oh my God, this has been so much fun, Josh. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be on your
yeah.
podcast.
Thanks so
And
much for doing this, Kev. And I like think come 2022, let's even in my place, your place, whatever. Let's watch a Jays game sometime, man.
all right, sounds like a plan, buddy. We'll reminisce about the days and continue on with the future.
Yeah. Shit. Thanks so much, Kevin.
All right, pal, I'll let you guys go. Thank you so much, and have a great night.
Okay, you too, Kevin. Take care, man.
See you. Bye.
Bye bye. Folks, he's been Kevin Penny. I've been Josh Dunn. This has been Gimpin' Ain't Easy 'Cause It Ain't, episode number 27. And remember, like I tells you every time, especially when you're feeling low, look yourself in the mirror, give yourself that Ric Flair, woo! And tell yourself, I am the greatest of all time. Good night.